ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Claddercast, episode 126. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm Andy Lewis.
I'm Sid Gill.
And I'm Rory Summers.
He's back!
I'm back. I had to take some time off. But I'm going to start the show this time around, with a movie review. Because we're a board game.
Have we changed format now?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Movie. I took the kids to go see the new Puss in Boots movie, which, by the way, is pretty good, if not a little bit scary at points. As in, like,
is this,
scary for
kids.
kids.
Is this the one like based on on Shrek? Is that like that Puss in Boots?
Yeah, Puss in Boots
right,
from
okay,
Shrek,
yeah.
and he's basically he's pissed off the Grim Reaper. Anyway, while we're watching this, they've got all the adverts and stuff there because very punctual, get there on time. Logan is getting really pissed off with all the adverts for cars and TVs and all that. And it's just like, is the movie going to start soon? Then eventually the trailers start, right? So we saw the new trailer for the Super Mario movie, and he was like, oh, there's Donkey Kong. Then he saw the trailer for the new, Spider-Man movie. He was like, oh, Spider-Man. Then the Dungeons and Dragons trailer came on. Oh. And his jaw was just dropping, and I could see him getting more and more excited. And then the best thing happened, right, which proves I'm an awesome father. Okay? If I don't need anything more than this, right?
Let me take notes.
You don't need to take notes. It's on a podcast. Right. We've got it written. We've got it recorded for all time, or until the server dies.
There's that scene from the trailer that we'll all be familiar with now, where the druid jumps off the horse and turns into a creature. At which point, Logan turns to me and went, "Is that an owlbear?" And my heart just exploded with pride. Wow. My 6-year-old son recognised an owlbear. And then, of course, the movie cuts it. Then you've got the wizard says, "Yep, that's an owlbear." Like, the timing of it was perfect as well, so it was great. But yeah,
spot on, sir. Well done.
Spot on, yeah. Parenting 101 mastered. It's good.
When's it out? Just out of interest, because
end of the month.
It's
end of the month,
right? Okay, well,
Yeah, 31st of March.
Something like that. Yeah.
Quite literally, it's like the last day of the month or something daft like that. I'm actually quite looking forward to it.
So am I. It doesn't look shit.
It doesn't.
Yeah, but no, let's not overexcite ourselves.
To be fair, it can't really be any worse than that Jeremy Irons monstrosity from the 90s. So
I've got one more fun tidbit, D&D related.
Oh.
So recently, Logan's school were like, World Book Day, come in either in fancy dress or with a hat. And Logan couldn't decide what to do. So I said, well, what are your favourite books? And he started naming like the monster books. And I was like, we could make you a hat to make you look like a beholder. And he got really excited at that, but
awesome.
then we realised that World Book Day was tomorrow and didn't have time to do it. So, but this close, I was this close to sending Logan to school as a beholder for World Book Day.
That'd been so sweet.
I think you should just be early for next year, mate. Get past it and be ready.
To be honest, it'll take you that bloody long to make it, because you need to hairspray the ropes so they all stay in the right place, or glue them, whatever, and then get massive googly eyes for each one. That would be ace, though.
I'm going to try and do it. For now, I'm going to set myself the challenge, because Logan will come to the UK Games Expo. Mm-hmm. I'm going to try and make him a beholder hat for the UK Games Expo.
Awesome.
There you go.
Good idea.
Now, bearing in mind the last challenge you set, you almost failed yourself, and that was painting the troll. So let's keep things in perspective here.
Right. So that's what I've been up to.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Well done. Good on Logan for recognising that stuff.
Yeah, very
so cool. What were your favourite books? The Player's Handbook, the Monster Manual, the Dungeonist Guide,
Pathfinder 2E,
Alien Source. But anyway, what else have you been doing, man? Board gaming, I hope.
I've been playing loads of board games. I've recently fallen in love, kind of, with Board Game Arena, and I know we talked briefly between us, not on the podcast, about playing games online, because we're all stretched for time and we live quite far away. But some guys at the club have convinced me to give Board Game Arena a try. And it is really good and really dangerous, but it's also bloody awful.
It is quite a basic interface, I'm not going to lie.
No, the interface is fantastic. One of the things I absolutely love about this is how it takes some games, and this is where it's dangerous. I've been playing Tzolk'in a lot recently. I think so far in the last 2 weeks I've played maybe 8 games of Tzolk'in.
Jesus.
Right? But it's like you start playing these games and you realise, oh shit, this game's really, really good. I need to own a physical copy. So then you have to go and buy the physical copy of the game you've been playing online. And then the amount of games that I'm playing are actually like that. Oh no, I've played Castles of Burgundy. You go, that's really good as well. So you go and buy that. And you go, Obsession. Yeah, I really like that one. And that's all. Before you know it, on top of your subscription, you've just spent 200 quid on board games, which sit on your shelf because you just play them online.
Gloomhaven now has that problem. As myself, Sid, and Steve have discovered, because the piece of the Steam version, the full version on Steam, which is it's only about 15 quid. It's really not expensive at all. It's a really, really good adaptation of the board game. The interface is great. All the mechanics are really well done, and of course, all the heavy lifting is done by the computer. So there's no fanning around with cards or counters or anything like that. It looks really good, and you can play a cooperative campaign. It's the campaign from the box. They've not made a new one. And you can play online with your mates, say at lunchtime, for example, or when IT services are messing around with your laptop and it takes 3 hours. And you can spend 3 hours. You can spend your lunchtime messing around and getting your arse handed to you electronically instead of in person. But it's a really, really good implementation of the game. But the problem with it is it renders the actual board game completely useless now.
Well, it's interesting because I actually played. I've been playing Zolkin with a couple of guys from my club to the point where now Tim has gone and bought a copy, and then the other night we went round and sat around a table and played a copy. It's actually I wanted to see it because with a turn-based games, as most board games, because Gloomhaven isn't quite that. You want to be playing live, don't you? Really, I'd guess.
Yes.
With other board, like with the Zolkin and the Obsession and Castles of Burgundy, Santa, everything I've been playing that's on BGA, it's a lot more turn-based. So I'll take my turn while I wait for the kettle to boil, go back to work and, check on it in a bit, and maybe you've taken your turn. And that's all right. But you lose a lot of that interaction. I'm not keeping track of what anyone else is doing. I'm just focused solely on what I'm doing. That has the other problem. I did play one game of Castles of Burgundy, which lasted 21 days.
Jesus Christ!
Because there was a player involved who would do one move a day, and then halfway through the game, after X amount of days, he went on holiday for a week and just didn't touch it.
That's rude, man. That's just rude.
And I'm just sat there going, oh, it gets to and there's the problem with Board Game Arena. There's my concentration for a board game only lasts. You're trying to think of your strategy, your tactics, just kind of keeping track of what you have done and what you're going to do next. But if I have to wait any more than a couple of hours between turns, it's like I've lost the will to play this game now. I just don't care anymore at all, and that's a shame.
I don't get on with this kind of asynchronous for that very reason. This kind of take a turn and go away. I remember when board games were first hit digital, and the big thing was always on the iPhone. Yeah, iPhone and iPad, because for some reason that was where they kind of boomed to begin with. And I got Nightfall. I don't think any of you guys have played Nightfall. I think it's a deck building game where you play vampires and werewolves, but it's quite old now. And you can't even play the iPhone version of it, I don't think, anymore, because it was 16-bit, and when they went to 32-bit or 64-bit, they never updated it. But I remember, I think it must have been lunchtime at work, going, I know, I'll kick off a game of this. I'm bored at lunch, I'll kick off a game. And I got into a lobby, 3 other gamers, fair enough, and the time limit was set for 5 minutes or something daft like that. So you have your turn, you got 5 minutes to have your turn from the notification. Fair enough, I can whiz out a game at lunchtime. Nothing. Following morning, there was a notification telling me I'd been kicked from the game at 1 a.m. because I didn't take my turn.
Wow.
What?
Because the game didn't start until 10 to midnight.
Oh.
That would just put me right off asynchronous gaming for years.
Yeah.
No, I definitely recommend that Board Game Arena, but I think it's that, when you sit down at a table and you almost have that unsaid social contract. The 4 of us are going to sit down at a table, we're going to play a game. We're not going to check our phones while we're doing that. We're not going to go, vacuum the living room while we're playing the board game. We're just going to concentrate on this board game, and we're going to have a chat, and we'll have a bit of a banter around the board game. but really, we're going to focus on this. The problem with Board Game Arena is that you need to have that agreement. Actually, we're going to play this game, and I know it's set to technically take your turn once every 48 hours, but really, I want to play this game today.
Totally.
I don't want to go
hour, really.
Yeah. And there's sometimes I've played one game of Seven Wonders Duel. I played one of that in 7 minutes.
No,
because it's great. There's no setup. There's no interaction with any components. I just click on that card. I want this. Done. Your go. That card.
Am I right in remembering? Because I only used Board Game Arena once, I think. It's actually played Tolkien hilariously a few years ago now. It's all the mechanics and the rules are built into Board Game Arena, unlike something like Tabletopia, where you're just moving things around, which is basically a physics engine.
So everything's built in, but because it's essentially open source, so some games have got really, really great like interaction. Other games have less so, and there's other things like some games have an undo button. So you can do this and go, oh, no, I forgot to pick up Zolkin, for example, I forgot to pick up my wood from that gear. I need to do that first. So I can just undo, go back and do it. Other games don't have an undo. So you go, oh, no, I've made a mistake. And that's it. You're stuffed.
You can't, sure.
Yeah. So the level of programming varies from game to game because it's being coded. And the same with some of them have a tutorial, like an interactive tutorial. Some of them don't.
Okay.
But really good. I'm enjoying it, although it is very dangerous because there's so many more games now that I want to buy because I know I like them. I was like, yeah.
Well, I can strongly recommend Zolkin. It's one of my favourite games.
But Tim's got Zolkin. You've got Zolkin. Do I need Zolkin?
Yes.
No. Right? do I need like realistic looking gold bars that are in my Etsy basket? No. Do I need the realistic stone in my basket? No, I don't need. But I'm going to get them all. Do I need to upgrade the crystal skulls? No, but they're still in my Etsy basket waiting to go.
How do you upgrade them? They're pretty good as it is.
Nah. I've seen some
they're
awesome
better ones, are they? Oh, God. See, I'm quite fortunate. I have all of the Stonemaier, realistic resources things. So I just use those if I want to bling it. So I don't need to buy additional ones.
That's what I'm thinking about. Just getting my own box. One of those, the really useful boxes, little cabinet ones.
Yeah. And just having compartments for each bit of resource.
And having loads. So just like, actually, I'm playing a game that has gold.
It's not a bad shout, man. It's not a bad shout.
Because I can buy 30 pieces of gold bars for like 12 quid, and if I can use them in a few games and it just makes my game feel and look better, then I'm all about blinging my game up. So
for the price of a game you can improve your game.
And then watch it sit on a shelf
being
a game.
6 months being a dust collector.
Nothing wrong with that.
It is nice though when you're playing games like that though. You get like chunky resource. It is quite pleasing. I can't deny it. I don't use my realistic resources enough really. I keep forgetting I've got them. Is the problem. Plenty of opportunities to use them. I just forget. But the problem is, of course, is now that a lot of Kickstarters and stuff are coming with the upgraded resources. So of course I buy them. So therefore, each game has its own
realistic
bag of resources or heavyweight things. You're like, oh God, how much extra? There's a running joke in our house now that I've got so many bags of coins because each game comes with its own currency. You're like, honestly, I've got about 8 different sets now. It's mad. Because Architects, Paladins, Viscounts all came with a bag of money. Raiders came with one. Side's got some. It's ridiculous.
They corrected those. The Garphill ones corrected them, because I've just gotten them back the second Ace Tigris one. And you can buy it with or without the coins. So if you've already bought the coins from the previous one, you don't need to buy the coins again.
Of course you do, because then you don't need to decant them. You've got a set of coins for each game and take them off the box.
Yeah.
Andy,
they go in the drawer. They go in the drawer in the kitchen next to the gaming table.
You put them in the parking meter when you go shopping.
Andy, didn't you get the what was it? Roxley did the
the poker chips for brass. Yeah, the what they call.
I thought clays. You just bought like a set of iron clays. Is like
no, they came with the brass because I backed the campaign. I don't know how Roxley did this, but they did brass and brass Birmingham for £40 or $40 a game, and that I know it's unbelievably cheap. I don't know how they did it for that price, but that included a set of iron clays for each game.
Just
so I got 2 sets.
Bloody hell!
I know, it was like $40. It might have been £40, but either way, it's still an absolute bargain for those games. Really high production, brilliant artwork, and a set of iron clays as well.
I can't get a copy of brass. I want a copy of brass Birmingham. I can't get brass Birmingham without the iron clays for less than £50.
No. I saw there was one at the event I went to last weekend that I'll talk about in a short time. That was being sold, I think it was Brass Lancashire, for about 50 quid. And that was the skinny one, the normal one, with just the cardboard things. And I think that was 50 quid at whatever shop it was. There were quite a few. But yeah,
random
it's
little
insane.
aside while we're on iron clays, I took it. I want to get some. I was going to do some homemade iron clays, so I went and found on Facebook someone selling poker chips for £10. So I got 1,000 poker chips, little bit of milliput, some sandpaper, and some white spray paint. I got myself, and then I found a company online where I can get like decals transferred, miniature transfers, but I design myself.
Ooh!
So I'm going to get just 1s, 2s, 5s, 10s, and so done. Spray paint my coins in all different colours, and then put the decals on, varnish them, and have 1,000 poker chips.
Do you know what you could do for like the same amount of money and a lot less effort? Is just go to eBay and buy a set of 1,000 poker chips, like I did many years ago.
I've got poker chips, but I want them to be numbered. I want all the poker paraphernalia erased from them. So
mine are, because I still am into poker. I don't play as much as I used to, but I bought like a full set of physically 1,000 chips and like numbered from like 1 to 500 or whatever it is. But they've got metal inserts, so they're heavy and weighty. But each metal insert has got the value indented into it. So, and there's no dice or cards or anything on it. It's just poker chips with a number in it. They're quite
and yet you still get Kickstarters with the realistic metal coins.
Yes, because they're more thematic. They make me feel like I'm there.
Mr. Lewis, speaking of the aforementioned event.
You mean, probably, Airecon. This is held in the Arnak Convention Centre, and has been for quite a few years now. But this year saw a change. They've moved us board gamers from the light side of the underground basement to the dark side of the underground basement, because basically Airecon has grown now. The venue that has been the main event for the last at least 3 years now, or 3 events at least, is now too small. Airecon has grown that much, so it's doing really well. But it means that now we've been moved from, where we used to go in the entrance by the Crown Plaza Hotel at that end of the road. It's now the other end of the road. So going from the sort of nicely airy, light painted room with the light coloured carpets, we're now in what basically looks like a cross between an aircraft hangar and a goth metal club.
I saw those photographs. Yes, you're right. It does.
So I felt like I should have been watching Rammstein or something at the end of the hall. But to be fair, during the day it's fine. I mean, even in the previous venue, we never saw daylight, so it didn't really matter. They're quite well lit, considering the fact that all the ceilings are black. But the one slight downside of it was that the exhibitors were kind of out of the way. Now, I only discovered afterwards that it turns out they're actually at one of the entrances to one of the halls. So if you went in that way, you'd walk straight past them all and get to see them that way. Whereas I sort of snuck in another entrance, and so I had to sort of make a deliberate journey to go and see them, because in previous years they were kind of in the middle of all the open gaming, so you could always see what was going on, so you could just have a pop over, chat, buy a board game, take it, play it, whatever, and see what was going on. This time they had a hall all to themselves, which is great because it means they've grown. There's loads of exhibitors there now, and loads of sellers like Travelling Man and Firestorm and stuff. But they were slightly out of the way once you got sat down to the open gaming, which there was tons of, absolutely loads. So, I mean, it's very much, for those of you who've not been before, Airecon is very much a playing games convention. It's always focused on the playing of the games, whereas Expo is very much a commercial enterprise, basically showing you and touting you what's coming next, whereas Airecon is very much all about the playing, all about the social side, all about the interaction, all about going, we need one more player, come and play this random game none of us have ever played before, and we spend 4 hours working out how to. But it doesn't matter because everyone's having a really good time. So this year saw the Thursday being the first day. It's usually the Friday, but we started at 4 o'clock on the Thursday. It's a bit of sort of mad panic to get up to Harrogate in the afternoon on Thursday. But it was really, really good. So there was Thursday afternoon and evening, Friday all day, Saturday all day and till 1 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. And then all day Sunday till about 6 p.m. So it was a very, very long weekend of gamings, which was ace. And it's still never long enough because you never play as many games as you think you're going to or indeed want to. But I managed to get a few bits and bobs in. So my day it started really with Friday morning. I played an RPG called Bots and Pieces, which one of my friends booked us into. There's 4 of us that played this, and it's an RPG set in I don't know if anyone ever remembers Ratchet and Clank or Scrapland or anything like that video game.
I played Ratchet and Clank,
Kind of that idea where everything's a robot. So you've got sort of anthropomorphized robots of various genres. They're all intelligent and they can communicate, and you've got like robot cows and horses and things. Except this is set in a Western. So, we were all playing as various Western types. So one character was actually a horse. The other one was a sort of dog, a robot dog. I played a kind of cowboy John Wayne robot type, and the idea was I think it was an introduction to the system. So I think it was being GM'd by the creator of the game, and it's hard to explain really. So I think the closest equivalent really was probably something like a cross between Star Trek and Dune, so using the Modiphius 2D20 system there, or a little bit of things like Aliens shoved in, because you had a bunch of stats on your sheet, as you do, and each set of stats has a die associated with it. So from a D10 all the way down to a D4. And whenever you came to a challenge, so like a test, you would be able to choose one or more of those stats that you thought was appropriate. So you kind of like in Dune, where you kind of convince the GM, I would use this particular skill because it's most appropriate for either my personality or the test at hand or whatever it is. That was the idea. The GM was fairly fast and loose, and there were loads of these things, so it kind of got a little bit convoluted, I think, where people would say, well, I could do this for this, and you say, well, you could just equally use like 15 different skills. So I thought it could use a little bit of streamlining in that direction. But then you roll your dice and divide the total by 3, and that's the number of successes you get, and obviously you get 1 success to pass a test, and all of that was quite fun. So it started off as a kind of investigation mystery type thing, and it was quite good fun to start with, light-hearted. We all put on little voices and things as we do, and it was all happy-go-lucky and jolly, and this is all right. And then came the extended tests, and the whole thing ground to a goddamn halt. Because, again, like in Star Trek, I know a couple of you played the Star Trek RPG, every now and again you get an extended test in that. And, you kind of work together in that. So, well, I want to do that, and I'll help you do this, and I can throw this skill together. You need a number of successes. But you can either pass or fail it, and doing so will influence the rest of the story one way or the other, yes? Remember that. And they're quite few and far between, roughly. You might get 1, maybe 2 a session.
Yeah.
In this, it was just test after test after test after test, and the whole thing is you basically chose which of your skills you wanted to throw, and you basically kept rolling dice with a little bit of fluff text. So I'm going to do this, rolling the dice until you passed them. And I kind of raised an eyebrow, going, well, why are we doing this? They're just trying to get numbers. I said, well, that's and just talking on top. He says, well, that's role playing. I said, well, it's not really, is it? I said, can we not just role play past this, with a bit of inventive thinking and get around the challenge that way? No, you have to do the challenge. And some of them were multi-stage, and there's like 6 of these things. It was like basically Dark Souls. Because until we got past these things, we couldn't carry on with the story. And it wouldn't have been so bad if the outcome of these tests had influenced the future story. So what we were doing, we were basically trying to defend a western town from, the interloper who wanted to basically level the place. So we had to spend a bunch of dice rolls, tests, setting up the town, so setting up some defences, making sure it could, get some weapons for the townsfolk, and then making sure that they could, go on the offensive and steal them up, basically. So you think, okay, that makes sense story-wise. So we did all of that, and then we got to the fight itself, and everything we did before had no bearing at all on the next set of challenges. And I thought, well, what's the point of the last hour? Why have we just spent all of this? So can we just assume that we're going to pack, because we've got enough challenges here. We can rest. We've got 2 days game time to do this. and it only takes 2 hours to recharge or rest. It's like we could do this 24 times and pass all of these tests. Can we just assume that we've done this? No. But also, part of the fact that you're bots means you can like join together, kind of like Power Rangers, with a big multi-megazord or whatever the hell it's called, and you get an extra die to do that. And the more times you do it, the more you can upgrade that test. And as far as I could tell, there was no detriment to doing such a thing. So it leads me to believe, on reflection, that you just basically spend the entire game all joined up together as like this sort of quad megazord thing. And are just going around getting bonus dice for that for no detriment. Now, we didn't see all the game. I will caveat that. There were lots of bits on the character sheet that we didn't see, so there may be things that detriment you in the future of the game. But ultimately, this is about 3 hours of my life that I'm not getting back.
There must be something you did enjoy, though.
Oh, yeah, Oh, you mean for the rest of the
not in the game. Moving swiftly on from that one. Yes,
I did. Yes. So I bumped into Big Davey T, who I shall talk about in a bit, and also Mr. Frank West, who we like and is a bit of I believe a listener of this show. And we had a good natter, Frank and I. We get on very well. And he introduced myself and Alora to his new game, which I think it's gone through Kickstarter and is currently in publication, but it's not out for another 6 months or so. And it is essentially a sequel to Isle of Cats.
Isle of Cats. Yeah, I know the one. Yeah.
Yes, which has done ridiculously well. Frank was telling me all about that, and he's all of his supplies.
So is this Race to the Raft?
This is Race to the Raft, yes. So in this game, Frank seems to have something against cats, it would seem. So in this game, you are trying to rescue cats from an island, so a similar island to the Isle of Cats. In the Isle of Cats, the cats sail to an island. In this game, they've discovered that this island is a bad idea, is being set fire to by Vesh and his minions. And if you remember City of Kings, Vesh is the bad guy in that universe. So the whole thing's in the same universe, and the cats are basically trying to escape this burning island. And the idea is there's a raft, and you've got to get the cats to the raft. All very straightforward in principle. And the board is essentially made up of sort of 4 smaller boards, and there's about 5 or 6 different sort of colours of square, which basically make up the terrain. And the idea is that each colour of cat can only travel on the matching colour of terrain. So you play cards a little bit like in Vidoran Gardens, there's sort of 9 colours on each one, if you remember that. You play that on top of the board, which allows the cat to move across that particular piece of colour as far as it can, a bit like in Tsuro. And then you've just basically got to make the paths for the cats to get to the raft. So it's a cooperative game. Everyone has a hand of 3 cards, I think it is. You're allowed to communicate a little bit, but you can't tell your opponents exactly what you have. You can say, I could help the blue cat, for example, or I can help the purple cat, but it would get in the way of the green cat, for example.
Andy, you say opponent?
Sorry, not opponent. A colleague.
Right,
it's a cooperative. It is a cooperative game. Sorry, it's a cooperative game, and so there's no turn order. You can go in whichever turn order you like. So you say, I can really help the purple cat here. Okay, you go play it. Bang. But as soon as you play one of your tiles, one of your cards, you have to then draw from a bag of fire tiles, which you then have to put on the map, which are polyominoes. So it's a kind of random polyomino tile card laying pathfinding game. And basically the tiles that you put on are all fire. So the map changes shape and gets smaller and smaller and smaller as the game goes on. And it costs you a card to play a card. You basically discard a card to move a cat. So you get a limited number of these sort of iterations before the entire board is consumed. So it's a bit of literally a race. It's like Frank's thought about it. And I have to say, it's bloody good. Really enjoyed it, and because it starts off with like a tutorial game, which Frank showed us to start with. This is how you play it. This is the easiest version. Please don't fail it. Nobody has yet. No pressure. Thankfully, we didn't. Oh, he was telling me a story of some team that he introduced it to. They were literally one turn away from failing because one of the people it was doing it just literally undermined the move of the previous person by just laying the card on top of the previous one. You're like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? But then he gave it, and the game has got something like 80 odd scenarios that you set up, and they get progressively harder, and it introduces new mechanics like different cats and limiting the movement of the cats and having cat like the same colour of cat, but one has to arrive before the next one, and it's all about timing. So it's really, really, really varied and very, very clever and very, very hard. So Strongly recommended, actually. I think you would all quite enjoy it. The game length is about half an hour. So it's a white box game. So it's that kind of, Frank's white box stuff. So it's that kind of weight. Really good. Scales really well. Extremely well produced. And we were only playing, prototype. So very, very much strongly recommended. Really enjoyed that. That's Race to the Raft by the City of Games. I think it's probably out in about 6 months' time. Probably Essen, I guess, given the time scales, but I don't know. I played Abluxxen, which is basically a precursor to Scout. Played it? Yeah.
So someone at Games Club last night said, Rory, because we're 5 of us left over, we're looking for games that sit 5 players. Do you want to play Scout, Rory? No, I don't. What? No. Oh, it's really good. It's not your normal thing, but you might enjoy it. I went, no. I got 3 people who board game opinions I respect a lot tell me it's shite. I'm not gonna play it. I'm just not gonna take the risk.
Oh, it's pish.
So I didn't play it in the end.
Good man, well done. Abluxxen is kind of a precursor to that. It's a hand of cards. You've got to lay cards in groups of numbers, and those numbers, those hands of cards affect other hands, and the person to get rid of all the cards wins. Simple as that. It's all right, If I think it's better than Scout, to be honest, but it's nothing special. Now, I did also play Weather Machine and QE and Dune Imperium. We've talked about those before, so I'm not going to cover those in the past now. But I am going to cover Dark Ages, which I know you own, Mr. Tudor.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, actually, don't go into too much detail, because I'd like to do this in a future episode when a few more of us have played it in a bit more detail. So give us a teaser. Should we be excited for this or not?
This is the Adam Kopinski one, isn't it? Adam Kopinski from a couple of years ago.
Board and Dice, Adam Kopinski, very well produced, very well made. It's basically a dudes on the map game. Not too dissimilar to something like Lords of Hellas.
Is this the game that we ran the heraldry competition for?
Yes, it is.
Oh, is it that one?
It is indeed, yes.
I did not. I couldn't remember that. I didn't realise that.
I backed this on Kickstarter.
Right.
And I have owned it for I don't know how long. I have opened the box, I've punched it, I started reading the rules in preparation for us playing it one Sunday, and then something else came along that we played instead, and I can't remember what else we played. And because I knew it was going to take all session to play this, because I'd never played it before. And it just kept put back in the box. And it's one of the high shelves, because it's a big box. It's one of the high shelves behind me. It does feel like it's staring down at me, looking at me with distaste. How dare you leave me up here?
Well, I have been informed this morning that we have this, myself and Laura have no plans this future weekend, just saying.
It's Mother's Day.
I do.
It's
Mother's Day.
I have plans this coming weekend. But it is dudes on the map. It's extremely well presented, well put together. Lots of ways to score points. I chose the church route, and considering I'd never played this before, I came second by 2 points, most annoyingly. But it's really good. It's a long game. It is a long game. We spent 4 or 5 hours playing this. Yeah, admittedly, 3 of us had never played it before, and 1 person only played it once, so there's a little bit of learning involved. But once you get the hang of it, it's not particularly heavy. The mechanics are pretty straightforward. It's essentially choose an action, do it. There's a little clever bit where you could do, if 3 people have done that action, the person who was basically did it first, so the bottom of the stack, they get to do a bonus action. So you get a little bit. So there's a little bit of timing of your actions chucked in there as well. I won't say any more than that, lest you play it.
It is a very intimidating box.
Oh, it's big. There's a lot in it.
Because there's a lot of stuff which is optional.
Yes.
So it's very, very modular. So there's a base game, and then there's 10 modules you can add, which do different things. Some of them change. It's like as if there's 10 expansions in the box, basically. Also, I've got the Western European version of the game. There is, in fact, an Eastern European version of the game, and you can join both versions together and play a mega game with up to 8 players.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. We played the map with Italy at the bottom, so I'm assuming Western Europe.
That'll be Western Europe,
But it was really good. Really enjoyed it. Very good fun, and honestly, some of the funniest stuff I've ever encountered. The chap next to me, Stu, basically was basically stuck at the top left of the map, and part of the game is you can upgrade your troops as you go along, and he basically just kept invading, a bit like in Civilization, where there's barbarians roaming the map to start with until you wipe them all out. There was this sort of area with the barbarian, and he kept invading this barbarian, and he kept getting his ass kicked because it's dice rolling thing, and he just rolled terribly. So we basically themed this is big angry old granny just hitting him with a rolling pin every time he tried to invade. And honestly, about four times he tried to invade these barbarians, he got his arse handed to him. He just lost it in 2 hours. Bless him. Because then he made cavalry and just stormed in, and then rampaged across the rest of the map. But it's funny. We couldn't stop laughing. Bless him. But Dark Ages, strongly recommended. Really great game. Really enjoyed that. Played Weather Machine after that, which we talked about before. Played Heat in the evening there, because we'd played 2 big, hefty games, so we decided we wanted a bit of fun. Heat, there's a lot of chat about Heat, same person who did Flamme Rouge. And Heat, really light. You've got a hand of cards, you're playing cards in a certain order to zoom around a track. And some of the bends have got like maximum speed, so basically you play cards, we've got numbers on, they dictate how far you can go. But if you travel too quickly into the corner, you spin out and you're forced to choose, you reset your gear. So the gear you set between 1 and 4 is the number of cards you can play, basically, in that particular round. And you can use Heat to put into your engine or to take out of your engine, depending on whether you want a turbo boost or you can slipstream, or things will put heat into your engine, or if you fuck up, then you have to burn heat out of your engine, like to simulate your engine overheating or your brakes kicking in and stuff like that. Really great game, really light, really straightforward, and a lot of fun. And I won because for some reason my real life driving may have took over. And I think it plays up to 6 at the moment, but there are conspicuously 8 starting positions on the board, so we suspect an expansion will be out in the near future. But that is an excellent game, really great fun, Heat, absolutely brilliant. So then we played Colourful in the evening. It is literally just the kind of think of something and everybody else has to think of the same thing. So you've got coloured cards, then you're given prompts that says, like a colour that reminds you of, I don't know, a wedding. So everyone, you might put white down, but you have to put it face down, and everyone has to put the same colour down. And sometimes it can be a bit ambiguous. So the idea is you've got to get them all at the same time, at the same colour. Very straightforward, very simple. So the thing I finished on the Sunday, having been harassed by him all weekend, was Big Davey T. And friend of the show, and he took me through his new game by himself and Mr. Luciani. I cannot tell you what it's called. I'm not allowed to tell you anything about it.
Are you under an embargo?
Pretty much. We did post some pictures and were asked to take them down. So,
have you broken our NDA?
No, it's nothing as formal as that, but Dave is just being cautious, and that's perfectly reasonable. So
this is David Turczi, by the way, for people who are not regular listeners. Randy's shorthand.
Yes, Big Davey T, Dave Turczi, very prolific, very, very experienced and competent game designer. We love his stuff mostly, and they're always usually fairly complicated, hefty games. And this game is akin to his previous works, let's put it that way, in terms of heft and complexity. I have now lovingly called it Brassage because it's a combination of brass and barrage. It's called...
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
know. So I can tell you a little bit about it, but not very much. So ultimately
We can do that now, or we can wait until the official announcement. And
we can wait.
Man on the inside.
We can wait. I will honour what I've promised Dave. So I will say nothing about it other than I enjoyed it, and I played about 5 or 6 rounds of it, and I like what I played. That's all I'm going to say.
Simple question then.
Yes.
If the Kickstarter launched today, would you be backing it?
Yes.
Right, there we go then.
He's the wrong person to ask, though.
Yeah, but I know what Andy likes. I know what Andy likes, so I know exactly where that picks in. I know where that slots into my brain and into my collection. Yes, I will probably enjoy it.
Yes, you
It also
would.
means I don't have to back it now as well.
That's very, very true. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's very clever. There's a lot going on. He was taking me through some of the thought processes and the design ideas behind it as well. And it's like, yeah, he's obviously thought about this, which he always does. But very, very good game. Really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to that.
Cool.
And that's by Board and Dice. And it's not a Kickstarter, so it'll just be straight out.
I mean, there's one aspect of Airecon you haven't covered, Andy.
Are you referring? I was going to say, referring to the sustenance what I ingested over the weekend.
Yeah, because you were sending me and Sid pictures all weekend, you bastard.
Yep. Yes,
I nearly blocked the bastard.
It was up to its usual standard. It's the usual reprobates were there. I think I got recognised. And although, because of there was a lot of snow when we went up, so a lot of people managed not to make it. They were literally snowed in, although the snow disappeared after like day 2 because it just pissed with rain. But the caterers somehow managed to run out of food 3 days running. Wow. So if you didn't get there by the 5 o'clock, you'd find that a lot of the food, or the options at least, had started to dwindle. But it was all good, very, very good. So all of the crepes and the poutine was particularly good, Mr. Sid. Wood-fired pizzas, canoodle were there. They're very good. Obviously, the Korean chicken is excellent from there. And then
how much of your food did you get down your PhD shirt?
None, Rory, because I can eat. I'm an adult.
No, let's not.
You used one of the branded PhD bibs, didn't you?
Have you seen Andy eat?
It's like Garfield.
Yeah. Like a black hole opening.
Doesn't touch the sides. But yes, it was all round. Airecon was an excellent event this year. Much enjoyed. Saw lots of people. Made lots of new friends. And I'm already looking forward to it. I think Alora's booked the hotel ready for next year already. So it was really good. Really recommended if you've never been. Right, it can no longer be the monologue. Carry on. Somebody else, please talk.
I've actually played a game.
Really?
So you're on a gaming podcast, you know.
I played a game that you guys have been talking about for ages, and I've seen it come and go on various bits of social media and various things like that for ages, and it looked kind of cool. And it, had a nice little theme, had kind of Indiana Jonesy kind of theme about it. And we finally got the chance to play it a couple of weekends ago, and that was Lost Ruins of Arnak. And I'll tell you up front how I felt about it, and then, Steve, you can fill in what it actually is.
Right, okay.
I thought it was really flipping good. And everything I'd kind of seen about it seemed to suggest it was a really well-made game. And just playing it, I can see why people were saying that. It was just a really fun, kind of hard, kind of interesting game. I really enjoyed it.
So, Lost Ruins of Arnak is kind of a blend between a deck builder and a worker placement.
I'm in.
You've got your two little chaps, which are your Indiana Jones types. They're meeples of Indiana Jones hats. And you're exploring this like Amazonian kind of wilderness full of ruined temples, which is what you're doing, sending your workers out, which is your little men. And there's different levels they can go to. There's like a base camp, and then there's like the medium expeditions, and then there's the very far away expeditions. And what you're doing is you're using the cards in your hand as means of moving these workers into place. Like for instance, you might have to you expend a boat card to move to a certain to move your worker onto the spot which has boats. You might have to move 2 cars to move onto the location that has 2 cars, and then you've got airplanes, which are like basically wild cards. But the rest of the game then works mechanically a very straightforward worker placement, in that you place your chap down, you usually spend a resource, unless it's the lower level ones, and you get something back. And these resources are things like these little stone tablets, there's arrowheads, there's these red gemstone type things, and then it's that whole Euro game of balancing that economy of getting X to get Y, to get 2 X's, to get 4 Y's, to get a Z.
And then realise that you've messed it all up because you haven't got a meeple to put on the sodding board, so you can't go where you need to go, and then you toss the table. I mean, you're very calm about it. It did happen a few times.
Because you've only got 2 workers. You've only got 2 of these explorers, these 2 Indiana Jones chaps. So it's very easy to get into that kind of rhythm of the Eurogame where you suddenly go, oh, I can do that. Oh, no, I've already actually spent the 2 workers, haven't I? I can't do that. Yes, Rory.
Thanks. I put my hand up
Mr.
and everything,
Summers,
boss.
at the first of the class with the hand up.
So you say it's a worker placement. Is there no option to buy additional workers? That's it. You've got to. You're always going to have to.
No. You always got 2. which is what limits this game, what actually makes it interesting. As Sid alluded to there, it's the interesting decision in this game because that is your major restricting factor. It's also got a track on the side of the board, which if you played Sulking, which you mentioned before, you won't be unfamiliar with. However, there's 2 different markers that go up the same track, and they can both go up slightly different paths. So slightly different paths require different resources. Each new level of this track will unlock something, whether it's a resource or they might give you an assistant, which gives you a bonus. But there's a book and a magnifying glass, and I can't remember which around they go, but one can't go past the other. So you always have to keep one ahead of the other and build up. If you can get these to the top of the track, it is points galore available. But there are points based on where these are available on the track. There's points based on buying cards, which represent either equipment or artifacts. And then the actual expeditions, when you go there, you'll get points for unlocking them. But once you've unlocked them, you also draw a monster. So some huge mythical beast, like a winged feathered serpent or some kind of dragon or giant toad or something, which goes on top of there. And if at the end of the turn you're still in the space of a monster, you get one of these cards that clutters up your deck, gives you negative victory points and clogs up with horribleness. But if you defeat that monster, which involves spending some resources, you'll get more victory points as well there. So there's several ways in which you can get VPs from different parts of the board.
So can I ask a question? Sorry, you've got the deck built. What does your deck represent then? What are you building your deck for?
Most of it is equipment. Yeah. So it represents things like cars, planes, automobiles, planes, trains, and automobiles, or planes, boats, and automobiles, which allow you to get your workers to the place. But then there are other cards which give you actions, which could be equipment, and then there are other cards which give you super duper bonuses, which are the artifacts, but they require one of these tome resources to use.
Okay. That sounds very interesting.
It is.
It's a really fun game. Yeah.
It feels really tight as well. It feels like it's been very, very well thought through and designed to try and keep the faffery to a complete minimum. For what is really a medium weight Euro game, it rattles along quite quick as well. And does have that classic Euro game point where, as you said, you suddenly realise I need one blue arrowhead and a red crystal, but I've got 2 tomes. Where can I go to get rid of 2 tomes, turn them into what I need to get those victory points?
You can go to the space that Andy's just occupied.
Yes.
It's got that medium weight Euro frustration all through it.
So we were talking about player interaction last week or lack thereof. This has got tons.
But that player interaction again is people getting to the space before you and getting in your way. Yeah. It's not actually direct, is it? You're not directly affecting people. But there is lots of things, especially at 4-player. It was brilliant because you'd see an assistant and you go, "Oh, I want that assistant," and then Laura would get that assistant.
Of course she does.
Okay, my plan was based on that. It's fine. I'll get that item out of the deck. That item on the deck there is exactly what I need. Sid grabs that. Right. Okay. Andy's now going in my space. Right, I can still salvage this.
Table's going to get
flipped. How?
I like the sound of this.
Right, it is very tight. It is very well made, and it doesn't. I think you will really like it, Rory. It doesn't outstay its welcome either because it is limited to 5 rounds. Or is it 6? 5. I think it is.
5.
Well, it is on Board Game Arena, so I've literally just invited a couple of my Board Game Arena mates to play a game of it. So maybe immediately after recording this podcast, I'll play a game of Lost Ruins of Arnak.
It's really good. Now, I remember because Steve and I had a review copy of this a couple of years ago when it came out, and we only played a 2-player game. And if I remember rightly, we came away thinking, yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
But it's definitely better with 4. Much, much better with 4 with more players. Because of that interaction, because of those spaces getting hogged, because the board doesn't scale, I don't think, with multiple players. So there's a bit more freedom with 2-player games, so you get less interaction. And I think the interaction of people stealing stuff is what makes it interesting, because you've got to rethink your way around the problem.
At 2-player, you could never stop somebody going to any site.
Yes, exactly right, yes.
Well, that would take away so much of
no, you can. There's only one space at the dig sites. It's only the base camps that have 2.
Yeah, okay, but the base camps were a source of significant frustration for me when I needed something, and you would park your big fat arse right on top of the red arrowheads or whatever they were, red gems and the blue arrowheads or whatever they were.
But of course. But I think that's what makes the game fun and interesting, because it was just a case of putting my meeple down, getting my resources, and then Steve putting his down, and then we just rinse and repeat. It's almost becomes a race, and that's just dull. Whereas with the interaction, I think it's a lot more interesting.
Yeah,
it's interesting. We had a question on the podcast a few episodes ago now, where your opinions of games have changed, and you were struggling to think of game where you had a poor impression, and now it's gone up to a good impression. And it sounds like Lost Ruins of Arnak is that your first impression as a 2-player was like, it's all right, and now it's gone, it's bloody good.
Oh yeah, totally. But I think
definitely.
I think at the time, Steve and I did caveat our opinion by saying we have only played it at 2-player.
Oh, no doubt you did that.
Did we get that like towards the end of lockdown or something?
Something like that. We couldn't.
It was released in 2020, so
yeah. Basically, yeah. So we couldn't see anyone else, and also, I think we put one of the rules wrong as well because we were cycling through the turns too quickly. So yes, we got a bit wrong.
Yeah, I remember we had to kind of redo some section of it, didn't we?
Yes, we did. But it's a good game.
There is one thing. There is an elephant in the room, though.
Look, I've put a bit of weight on, all right, mate? Don't make a big deal of it.
Aircon
was kind to me.
All the poutine and Harrogate is in you biffer.
For breakfast, I might add.
Breakfast poutine, mate. I mean, the Canadians just have it right. There's one thing that I think we cannot ignore, because many people have OCD. Yes, I think we four have a small issue with it. There's that little player board bit down the bottom of Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Can we just talk about that for a moment?
I know. I've got the feeling you guys are going to upset me.
Right. So for some reason, Rory, right, the board is like 2.5 boards. So you've got a normal fold-out board, and you've got a wee board that goes at the bottom. But it's weird because it feels like it should have been part of the main board.
Right.
And the artwork matches up. It perfectly lines up.
Right. Okay. Then let's move on. No.
Well, no. The issue here is it is about 4 millimeters narrower than the main board.
Oh no!
At each
on
side.
Both sides, so you can get the center crease bang on. You can get all the artwork to line up, but there's 4 mil on either side.
I took great delight at pointing this out to Sid, and then watched the ensuing meltdown.
Every round, I couldn't deal with this.
I couldn't help but look at that 4 mil. Oh.
I kept going, why?
That's why we beat him.
Why is it a separate part of the board? Why couldn't it just be part of the other board? I'm sat there trying to work out why on earth, what economic design decision was made to mean that this board was A, separate, and B, a different size. It was a jab, but do you know what? I'm still not over that.
And you know the best bit is he kept moving it to try and work out whether it was just better to have it lined up on one side and off on the other, or have it in the middle. It was just great. It was so much value just shoving these things slightly. Now, it annoys me too, but it's more. I can put my annoyance to one side, knowing it annoys Sid even more.
But that aside, that small elephant in the room, niggle aside, it's a bloody good game.
Oh, see, no, I don't like. What was it we played at the Dice Box? Is it Rising Above and Below, or?
Mm-hmm. But
Above and Below,
Above and Below. See, I will never play that game again because they ballsed up the artwork, and the fact that I can't get things to line up properly.
To be fair,
it bothered me that much that actually I'm glad it wasn't a great game, but I don't want to play it because you just like poor production design decisions like that really piss me off, really upset me.
Apparently they upset Sid too.
It caused me great
to be fair,
grief.
You don't have to use that bottom board. It's literally just for like resource storage and the stacks for the assistants. You could literally dump that board to one side and just have these things stacked up elsewhere.
You could, and you know that's a perfectly legitimate reason. If you don't, extend the artwork onto that spare bit of board to make it look like that's where it should fit. So I would completely agree with you, was it not for that little nugget of extended artwork.
So it goes at the bottom.
Because then it's even worse. Now you've got
Yes.
artwork on one end of the table that doesn't match the board that's on the other end of the table, or you take the board and you sling it in the bucket and get some little balls out. That I would accept.
As I've just said, I think that would be better. Because the little Wii board doesn't serve any purpose other than storage. Rory's now focusing on this.
Do you know,
Trying to zoom in the picture online
No.
just to see that little gap.
I'm looking at the board as it's presented on Board Game Arena and trying to work out whether I can just cancel the game, whether it's going to upset me if they've done it digitally as well.
I bet it lines
looks
up
like it's
online. I bet it
I think
lines up.
I think it looks like it lines up.
Anyway, that was Lost Ruins of Arnak from Czech Games Edition. And so, yeah, thumbs up all round there. But definitely more than 2 players. That's the caveat. It's all right with 2, but it's much, much better with 4.
Do you know it's a game that's a real ball ache when you play it with 4 players, but is all right at 2. And is all right at 3 as well as Woodcraft. I don't ever want to play that. Yeah, I don't want to play that game at 4 players again. Went on for frickin' ages.
Now, is that the game or is that the players?
No, that's the game. That's the. I mean, we did stop to have tea and lemon drizzle cake at one point through the game, but that was, I'm not counting that as part of the time span of the game.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next game we're going to talk about is Woodcraft, which I was dead keen to get hold of this and play it, and I went round to play it with Andy and Laura. So I've played this at a 2, 3, and 4 player count now, and it's a good game. And it's an interesting one. I've been thinking about this. It's a good game, although I do think I'm going to sell it soon. I don't think it's going to be in my collection come the summer.
Really? That's interesting. Yeah. Do tell. But tell us more, Rory, and then you can tell us why.
So in Woodcraft, you are a little hippie woodcrafter, elven folk, I guess. You know, you've got green hair. It's not behind me. And in this, you are trying to just build a sustainable life. So you've got a little wooden house, and you've got your workshop, and you've got some helpers that are going to come in and help you, and you're going to try and build items out of wood to sell for blueberries, so that you can eat the blueberries throughout the winter and the hard months, and keep yourself sustained. And you're going to play this game over 14 rounds. There are exactly 14 rounds, and in your turn. In each game, you're going to take one action every turn, and you take it from this lovely wheel that's in the middle of the table. And each action, once you take it, it moves to a next section, and it's a really clever way of making actions that players aren't taking more valuable. So the more time something doesn't get chosen, the more valuable it becomes. It starts accruing additional bonuses with this really cool wheel that spins round periodically, and if there's an action that players keep taking again and again, it essentially becomes less valuable, and also boosts all the ones that get left behind. But Woodcraft it's a dice manipulation game. You've got 3 different colours of dice, and you're trying to get them as high as possible, or rather you're trying to get them into as many variations as possible to meet the orders. So an order might have you want a brown 6 and a yellow 3. So you just need to get those 2 dice to those number of pips. Or you could have an order which is, 3 green 1s, a green 3 and a yellow 4. In which case you want to get either all of those dice, or you get 1 green 6 and you chop it up using your saw to get all the requisite numbers, and bang, pay your bill. It's a typical Euro game. There's lots of different ways to get points. You've got points that you're going to get from completing your orders. You're going to be able to just buy points if you've got enough money. You've got an income round where you're just going to gain points every 4 times throughout the game. It's not an overly complicated game, I would say.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, in your turn, you just pick one action, you perform your action. You've got a few bonuses that you might be able to do, like cutting the wood or gluing the wood together, or bits like that, and then that's it. It's the next player's go. But it is a really tough game, and I liken it to watching like a really intense drama movie, right? Yeah, stick with me now. I started this podcast talking about movies. I'm going to get to the end of this final review, talk about movies. So, right, you're watching. I'm trying to think of like Saving Private Ryan, for example. Right, Saving Private Ryan, action movie, war, drama, quite an intense. You watch it and go, right, that was a well-made movie. That was a good movie, well-made, great soundtrack, great acting, great script. But was it a fun movie? No. Woodcraft is a well-made game. It's well constructed. It's well thought out. But I get to the end of those hours playing it, and I'm like, did I have fun playing Woodcraft? And every time I've played it, although I've enjoyed the game, I haven't had fun playing the game. I find it's a really... I find it like the decision, the one action I'm going to take, it's really hard to decide which action I'm going to take. Money in this game is so important, but it's really hard to get. And the main way to get money is to sell wood. But wood is the main resource you need to get objectives. Every choice is so cutthroat and it's so difficult. And then on top of that, you've got it can be really disheartening. If you miss out, or if you just don't get that engine ticking over quite quickly enough, or rather if someone does it better than you sooner than you,
mean
it becomes Allura, or it becomes really very disheartening to see somebody just outpace you to the point where you know you are never ever going to catch them up. I played this 4 players a little while ago, and I took a good lead and had a good engine build going on. So it got to the point where the 3 guys around the table were like, okay, it's kind of like who's coming into second. And really, the game ended up being a 2-horse race. There was me and Chris, and everybody else. It's just like it doesn't matter what we do. They could take actions to stuff us over, or make our lives slightly more miserable, but it wouldn't benefit them. Down. And you've only got so many. It's like you don't have actions to waste to play a dick move. You might do an action that you need, and it might be a dick move as well, but you can't. So they were in this really annoying, it's really disheartening situation. Much as you and I, Andy, were when we played against Allura. Yeah. Allura was just outstripping us. She's like, we got halfway through the game. And Allura, at the income phase, you just generate money and points. And by the time we got to the second one, Allura was generating 11 victory points.
Yeah, I mean, I was keeping pace with it until that point. Yeah. But because I was so far down the track like you were, she was just so far up on the income generation track and the points generation track. It was just like, she's just like 10 points, 10 points, 10
that's
points.
It.
You're like, yeah,
when we did the third round, she got another 11 points. We did the fourth and final income. She got another, I think by that point she got 12 or 13.
Something like that,
all of the points that she generated from that income track were more than I got from my orders.
Yeah,
and it's just
yeah.
And there was nothing I could do. There's nothing I could do to make to become more, to get a better synergy in my engine, or there was no way I could generate more income. There was no way I could get more wood. I was stuck, and someone else wasn't, and they flew.
It did seem, weirdly, that a game that seems to be focused on like using the wood to fulfill the orders, because that's basically what the main mechanic around is. And I think it's worth pointing out, the mechanic for the game is really clever. You have dice that represents like basically quantities of wood or lumps of wood, and that's like your colours of dice that with pips on it. But what you do is you cut that piece of wood, say, in half. So you'd turn a D6 into 2 D3s, for example, or you could turn a D3 into a 2 and a 1, which would then be able to fulfill an order, which is what Rory alluded to before. I think that's really clever. But yeah, it seems, it gives you the illusion that you're supposed to focus on the orders. Because that's where the dice are for, that's where you put the dice, that's what the dice are used for. And you're right, Rory. I think Allura got more points from the income track as a result of fulfilling orders than she got from the orders themselves. So it was kind of it almost sort of pulls the wool over your eyes, whereas you and I were stupid enough to fulfill orders. Allura did the smart thing and just went up the tracks. Yeah. So yeah, it's weird though, because you seem to you were really enthusiastic when you sat us down to play this.
Yeah,
it's a brilliant game. Really enjoy it. It's great.
That's it. Like I said, no, it's a really good game. It's a really good game. I think it's a great game. It's really well produced. It's really clever. It provokes really interesting thoughts. All of your 14 choices are interesting and they're difficult, but it's not a fun game. I get to the end of play it for 2 hours or 3 hours, how long the go goes, and I go, that was just like hard work.
It's like when Steve and I play Raiders of the North Sea. It's a clever game, but we're so shit at it. We go, this crap.
It's like I play Woodcraft, and afterwards I go, I need to sit down and have a cup of tea. Right? And that's the thing. It's good. It's really good. But for me, I don't know whether I like dice manipulation games. That's a type of game, a mechanic in games that I really, really like. And I like these tough decisions, and I like the way there's a lot of things in Woodcraft that I like, and I like everything in Woodcraft except the artwork, which is a bit ropey. But it just feels like I get to the end of it, I'm just like, I need a break.
Yeah.
I don't want to play another board game right now. I need to take a break from board games, and that's a big deal for me to say that.
Yeah, I'm surprised because you were really enthusiastic about it. But I know what you mean. I can't disagree with anything you've said. I thought it was okay. I mean, the mechanic with the dice is clever, but it's a game that I would happily play but not own, I think. Because Alora was looking to buy it potentially at Airecon, but she did shy away from the idea, and I think she's chosen wisely. It's a game that you should play, but not necessarily own.
Yeah, and if you want to borrow my copy of Woodcraft, that's fine. That's grand, and I'm in no rush to have it back. It's just, you can buy it, you can play it, and then if I don't get it back for another 3 months, that's fine. I think I will get maybe 2, maybe 3 games out of it more, and one of those will be solo. I think it might be a really good solo game, and then it will jettison from my collection. But it's a really good game. It's just I can't see, and because it seems to take a long time to play. And I think the payoff
did
of
go on a
fun,
bit, actually.
Fun to time ratio, I think there are games that I can play that take the same amount of time that are more fun.
Tolkien.
Tolkien, I could get 3 games of Tolkien in the time I played Woodcraft. Yeah. And so
Blimey, how long was it?
It was a good couple of hours. It was really long. It was 2.5 hours.
We played for 2.5 hours. That's the 3 of us that are quite good at learning games and playing games, making quick decisions. And Laura had watched the rules video, so the teach was very quick as well, just teaching you and Laura, because you knew most. So the teach was only maybe 15 minutes on that, but it took us 2.5 hours to play, and it was literally
only 3 player.
At 4, it went up again. Teach the play, and it's coming on to one of our questions if we've got time for it.
I played Weather Machine in that time.
Yeah.
Well,
that's it. I played it with the 4 players I played. I've also played Ark Nova. We'll take the same amount of time to play Ark Nova, and we've all said I would rather play Ark Nova. Again, it is more fun. It's not as complicated. It's not as good as Woodcraft, but it is more fun. So if you're going to sit down for 3.5 hours, I want to have. I want fun.
Well, that's ultimately why we play games. So there you go.
Yeah, but it's a really good experience. So I definitely play Woodcraft. It's a good game.
But Rory and I are shit at it. That's why we don't like it.
Oh, God, awful. I copied Laura's strategy of going up these tracks, and I was kicking ass. And I don't know what the hell Chris did, but he absolutely creamed me. I don't know where he got his score from. I was absolutely kicking ass by the second increment, and then it just disappeared.
Right then, I think that's us for the day. We have got some questions in the mailbag, but we will leave them till next week, I think. Next podcast. God, I'm not keen enough to do one next week. Blimey, that's ridiculous.
We often say last week or next week, don't we? But it's never weekly.
Yeah, it's
next
never
time.
Next time it should be.
Next time on Jackanory.
So, thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed us, please give us a review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. If you want to get in touch, you can find us on all over the internet, on Facebook, Twitter. Just look for Polyhedron Collider or go to Board Game Geek Guild 2726. A good place to go if you want to ask us some questions for next week. Now, I said week again, didn't I?
Yeah,
I'm an idiot. Anyway, let's stop this now before I make an even bigger fool of myself. So, tatty bye and happy gaming.
Ta-ra!
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.